Good morning, everybody, and welcome to a special Christmas Eve edition of Coffee and Football. Tell us where you're checking in from, what you're drinking, get your questions in. We're going to have Greg Tepper, managing editor of Dave Campbell's Texas Football, joining us here in just a little bit as well. And also, I want to give a big shout out to Duck Camp because they're once again sponsoring Bobby for college football playoff week leading up to the Peach Bowl. A week from tomorrow. So it'll be here before we know it. But let's just dive right into it. Speaking of the Peach Bowl, guys.
I got a Christmas present for the chat.
Uh-oh.
Got a Merry Christmas, chat.
I love it.
Merry Christmas.
I love it. Jerry Hamilton eating corn dogs at 8:15 in the morning with mayonnaise.
Hey, it's okay to eat pigs in a blanket or kolaches in the morning, but not that, Jerry. I mean, that just makes people cringe. Let's get started with some news. First of the day, Steve Sarkisian, Kenny Dillingham got out in front of the media yesterday afternoon. CJ Vogel, myself, Jerry Hamilton there for that. We had a little reacts piece on Texas Football video channel yesterday. A couple of major things to take away from that for all of us. Cam Williams was back on the practice field. The injury, according to Steve Sarkisian, quote, not as severe as expected. Cam Williams, I'm not saying he's a go or anything like that for the Arizona State game, but definitely great news for the Longhorns in that regard. Also, Trey Wisner and Jake Majors also expected to be available as well, guys. So that's really good news on the injury front for Texas. Outside of that, it was a lot of mutual respect for two offensive coaches, I thought, Jerry. Dillingham and Sarkisian trading basically love letters to one another. And, I look at him. I look at his offense, and I think about what he's doing, all of that stuff. It was interesting. We can get into that a little bit later today, as well as some portal news. And then the very last thing I asked at the very end of the press conference is whether or not Bevo was going to be allowed on campus. And guess what? No Bevo, guys. No Bevo for the second straight time at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta. They said it's just not safe for Bevo there, actually. And his enclosure, it would be too close to the field. Hey, if they play in the national championship in Atlanta, they need to find a damn way to get Bevo on the field. Now, I'm okay with this quarterfinal stuff, but if it's the national championship, Bevo needs to be there, guys. I'm okay.
I think he would be. I think he'll be out of timeout after almost bludgeoning people to death a few years ago if it's a national championship game.
If it's the national championship, he needs to be there. I'm okay with this week. But special considerations need to be made. Even if he's hanging out in a corral next to the stadium, he needs to be there. Yeah, in Atlanta if Texas makes it that far. Jerry, I talked a little bit about Sark and Dillingham's press conference. What were a couple of your takeaways from that yesterday?
Yeah, so look, with Cam Williams, I said this yesterday, but I talked to somebody, and he's had a little bit of a lingering, knee. Nothing major. Doesn't mean it's not something that might have to get taken care of after season leading into the NFL draft or whatnot, but it's not something that I think is going to heal during the season. I'll say that. And I think it just kind of re-aggravated it from what I hear. I'm a little different. I think, and he practiced just yesterday with brace. Isaiah Bond did not. I'm sure Cam Williams wants to play in the game, but I think Texas could rest him and get him ready for January 10th as well. So, I mean, it's not like Trevor Gooseby hadn't played really good football at left or right tackle in the absence of Cam Williams or Kelvin Banks. The other thing, no mention of Jake Majors, Trey Wisner. I think everybody was back at practice yesterday, save Isaiah Bond.
And don't forget, it gives an extra 10 days for Kelvin Banks to get even healthier. And he looked healthy enough on Saturday, leading the way on that block of the 77-yard run of Jaden Blue. Some other recruiting news and notes that have come around in the last 24 hours. As I wrote on Texas Football this morning, Texas had 5 official visitors in, Jerry and Blake, that were portal visitors in the early period here prior to their game on Saturday. 3 of those have signed with Texas. Defensive lineman Cole Brevard out of Purdue, linebacker Brad Spence out of Arkansas, and punter Jack Bomeister out of Utah. The two other players that had visited Texas actually made their decisions yesterday, and those are Eric Singleton, the wide receiver out of Georgia Tech that we talked about yesterday morning. He is signed with Auburn. And Max Clare, the tight end out of Purdue, originally from Cincinnati, he signed yesterday with Ohio State. So those 5 guys are done. Texas is looking at a couple of defensive tackles in the portal at this point. There may be more, as I explained in the article this morning on Texas Football. The portal closes. The portal window officially closes December 28th. So if you're going to go in the portal, you have to go in by December 28th. However, there is a loophole, and that is if your team is still playing and you're with the team, you get an additional 5 days after your very last game to go into the portal. So there's 30 teams still playing college football right now. There will be a number of new prospects go into the portal over the next week to 10 days, even beyond that magical kind of January 1st timeline, where frankly, a lot of teams play on January 1st that will have guys go into the portal. I would also add this. It is a dead period right now for the portal. And what that means is, by NCAA definition, is they can have no in-person visits face-to-face. They obviously can text and call, though, during that time period. It will reopen on January 1st, which strangely, Texas is going to be in Atlanta. So it's going to be hard for the Longhorns to do much on the 1st. But the minute they get back on the 2nd, expect Steve Sarkisian and his crew to start going at the portal hot and heavy yet again.
All right, guys. Before we move on, Bobby, I'm going to let you tell everyone out there about the good folks at Duck Camp, if that's all right with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Very excited about this. The last couple of weeks have been brought to you, this college football playoff edition of On Texas Football. All of them have been brought to you by our friends at Duck Camp. Duck Camp gear is made for the people that live for the moments out there where there are fish to catch, birds to hunt, time to kill, college football playoffs to watch. They like doing all that stuff, so they built a company centered on it, based in Austin and dedicated to giving people best-in-class hunting and fishing apparel. Jerry and I were out at Duck Camp last week and saw the gear firsthand. It is absolutely first-class stuff. I'm wearing their vest right now. Some of their featured items, sun protection shirts that keep you cool, dry, and comfy. It's available in camo and solid colorways. Their iconic game series hats that feel as timeless as the hats found in your grandpa's garage. Be sure to check out the new mallard hat and pointer hat in the clay colorway. That's clay, pretty much your burnt orange cherished color there. Here's the great seasons, y'all. Yes, hunting and football. Shop hunting gear at duckcamp.com. Thank you guys for sponsoring On Texas Football. We appreciate it very much.
And there was a little movement on the Texas line. It's now Texas a 14-point favorite. Of course, the Longhorns opened at 13.5. But let's take a look at all 4 of the college football playoff games. Penn State at Boise State, of course, will be on Christmas Eve. Penn State, an 11-point favorite. Then, of course, we just talked about Texas and Arizona State, Ohio State and Oregon. Ohio State's a 2.5-point favorite. And then Georgia, when they take on Notre Dame, Georgia is a 2-point favorite. Curious to get y'all's thoughts on that as a whole.
Yeah, I like the Penn State line. I think Texas is a little low. I think Ohio State is a true pick'em game, and I think Georgia's a little low. I think Georgia should be a bigger favorite over Notre Dame, just me. I would take Penn State over Boise. I would probably take that number as well. I think Boise's got good pass rushers, but I think it's a bad matchup for Boise outside of that. I think Penn State is going to be put a lot of pressure on Boise's quarterback. It's going to be similar. I mean, I think just lines of scrimmage for Penn State are a big advantage in this game. Outside of Boise having a couple of good pass rushers, the same with Texas. It's just a talent disadvantage, talent advantage for Penn State and Texas up front on both lines of scrimmage. Ohio State, Oregon, a true pick'em game for me. I mean, that's a true pick'em game. And I know everybody's on the Notre Dame's going to beat up on Georgia thing. I don't know. I think Georgia is going to I think Notre Dame's going to be up against it talent-wise like they always have been when they get in the game like this against an Alabama or Georgia. And I think that's going to be the difference, even with Gunnar Stockton.
All right. So, hey, you go Penn State over Boise, right?
Oh, yeah.
Ohio State, Oregon, you think is a pick-em game?
Yeah.
And you're sticking with Georgia over Notre Dame.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I don't like – I know people think, well, Notre Dame will just run Riley Leonard like Georgia Tech did Haynes King. They're two totally different players. Haynes King is a tough, rugged dude. I watched him in high school. A lot of people here watch him in high school. Riley Leonard has had a cracked ankle. He's not that same guy as a runner. He is a escapability guy, and he's a good athlete. He had Division I basketball offers, but that doesn't mean you can sit there and do what Georgia Tech did against Georgia with Riley Leonard. He won't make it out of the game healthy if they do that. Haynes King is used to taking a beating at that position because of the way he's always played. And he's had injuries because of it. He's always missed games. But Indiana got a lot of pressure on Notre Dame for having the talent level Indiana has. That's a real concern for me if I'm Notre Dame in that game. And Riley Mills is now out for the year, their best defensive line, arguably their best, maybe not their best, one of their top 2 defensive linemen. Yeah, I like Georgia.
So I'm going to be a little bit different than you. I'm not thinking. I don't think Ohio State, Oregon is pick 'em right now. Like I favor Ohio State heavily, and one of the reasons why, and this is big in my opinion, is I do like the idea that Ohio State has played a game in the last 10 days. Jerry, I mean Oregon has sat for 3 weeks.
Yeah,
right. I mean that layoff is real. We've seen it be real in previous years. I think that it's going to disrupt the timing not only of an Oregon, but also of an Arizona State, of a Boise State, and a Georgia. That layoff, we've seen people come out and not be sharp right out of the gate in these games because the timing is just disrupted a little bit on offense and a little bit on defense. Because you're not going full bore like like Texas had to last week against Clemson, or Notre Dame had to against Indiana, Ohio State against Tennessee, Penn State against SMU. You're more in that realm of getting ready for things. So I'm going to Ohio State in that game, and I'm also going Notre Dame over Georgia. I think those 2 teams, in part because they played more recently. With Notre Dame, for me, it's all about Gunnar Stockton at quarterback. If y'all missed that yesterday, by the way, they came out and officially confirmed yesterday that Carson Beck, the Georgia quarterback, has had surgery, the UCL surgery, and will be out for the rest of the playoffs. So take that into consideration as well. But Ohio State and Georgia for me on those 2 games. Penn State over Boise all day long, by the way.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. The Notre Dame Georgia game, it's a lot of opinion. The thing that I find kind of amazing about the Notre Dame Georgia game is 3-4 weeks ago, the majority, media, everybody didn't even think Notre Dame should be in the playoff because they hadn't played anybody. But suddenly they're going to go beat up on Georgia.
I didn't think that, though. I thought Notre Dame should be in. So I'm a little different.
Yeah, I mean, look, Notre Dame's played the worst schedule of anybody in this playoffs. If you care about that stuff, I guess my take on it is it'll be fun. This is all discussion. It's fun. If Gunnar Stockton's good enough to beat Texas, he's good enough to beat Notre Dame with 3 weeks to prepare. That's my thought on it.
That was a little bit of a gotcha moment because they started getting QB draw.
It was.
I agree. I hear you, but I just disagree. I mean, good men can disagree. I learned that a long time ago.
It's what makes it fun. It's what makes it fun.
Absolutely.
Oh, good stuff. We got a super chat I want to read real quick, guys, from Jack. Jack will wish you a Merry Christmas and say thank you for the super chat. He says, thanks to OTF for a great year of coverage of the Horns. We're going 3-0 the rest of the way. 1 game at a time. Quinn becomes a Longhorn legend.
Yes. 1 game at a time. And I think that, Jack, here's my take, right? Is with Quinn, all he's done at Texas is win. I think that part of the problem with Quinn, and it may end up being the problem with Arch, are the expectations people had of him on the way in the door. None of which, by the way, he was party to. I mean, Quinn Ewers didn't ask to be the highest rated quarterback of all time. Arch Manning didn't ask to be rated that way. Yet with that comes expectations on his back, and being the quarterback at Texas that leads to these preconceived notions, as opposed to grading him on what he was coming in the door and how he's performed since then. Has he been the best quarterback to ever play at Texas? No. Okay. Has he been really, really good? Yes. Has he won 12 games or led the team to win 12 games in back-to-back years? Yes. Has that been done before? I think they've done it once. And so my point on this is Quinn Ewers is not perfect, but you know what? He's ours. and people better get behind him, because the reality of it is Texas is right now in the midst of being in the Final 8. They were in the Final 4 a year ago. They have a guy with 3 years experience at quarterback. Only a couple other teams have that right now in this game or in this playoff. And I'll say it again. I think there are 6 teams out of the 8 that can win a national championship right now. 6 out of 8. And Texas is one of those 6. You know, he goes out there and plays really well. He plays like he did against Clemson. Texas has a chance in just about every game, in my opinion. A repeat performance. Right now, I feel better about Texas after how they played against Clemson than I've felt about Texas in a month and a half. And really maybe since the Michigan game. It was I know they got moved the ball on a little bit on defense in the pass game, but guess what? As a good quarterback, good wide receivers, good skill guys, those guys are going to move the ball against you. The offense moved the ball on the ground. The offense looked competitive from start to finish. 1 punt all game. I feel strongly right now about Texas, and part of that is because of how Quinn played on Saturday. A big part of that is how Quinn played Saturday. You know, he did not turn the ball over theoretically. DeAndre Moore dropped a pass. And we were talking about, hey, Quinn needs to play a clean game. I thought Quinn had one really bad pass, and that was I'm not so sure that wasn't a mix-up between him and Ryan Wingo in the flat on the opposite hash. He was a little late with the throw. But every other pass, I thought Quinn was fine. Not perfect. I mean, he missed the ball to Golden on 4th and 2. But, you know, those things are going to happen.
I'm going to go to this real quick. Any ex-Texas players on Arizona State roster? Yeah. Xavier Alford starts at safety and has a chance to he has a career in football after college, whether that's CFL, NFL, that's going to have to be proven out over time, or they'll have to be decided by him over time. A really good player. Prince Dorbos started at edge against Iowa State in the Big 12 championship game. I'm not sure he's been an every game starter, but he's considered their second or third best pass rusher. Zach Swanson, rotational player at defensive line, not a starter, backup in the rotation. Troy O'Meara started the Big 12 championship game with the injury to Jordan Tyson, who obviously is by far and away their best receiver. But he did get a start. He's been a rotational player. Jake Smith, rotational player. So those are the guys that were Texas Longhorns that originally signed with Texas at Arizona State on this team this year. Jamon Tapp was on the team, didn't really play much, hit the portal. They have a number of other guys from Texas, though, that didn't sign with Texas. Clayton Smith out of Texas High, who signed with Oklahoma over Texas A&M, a couple others. He is their best edge rusher. Jordan Crook starts at linebacker from Duncanville, an Arkansas transfer. You can go down that list. Arizona State's got around 22 players, I believe, scholarship players from the state of Texas on their roster.
All right, guys, we got more super chats here to get to, and we're going to do just that. This one here from Hookem Troy. Thank you, Hookem Troy. Thank you all for always providing us with accurate information. You fellers are a blessing for Texas fans. Merry Christmas and Hookem.
Thank you so much, Troy. We appreciate you, buddy. Trying to do it. Getting ready to I got my parents are in town. We got the in-laws coming over tonight. Both my kids are here. I'm ready for it. I hope you have a blessed Christmas. And happy holidays to you and yours as well. By the way, we are not, I want to use this time real quick. We are not having our normal coffee and football tomorrow morning. It's not going to be Christmas with coffee and football, but we will have instead Hump Day with Hills. Tony Hill is going to join Jerry and I for a special edition. It will be a pre-recorded version, but we didn't want y'all to miss out on Tony Hills. So if you can do that, we can talk about that a little bit later today as well. But Tony Hill's coming on tomorrow for us for Christmas. Hope you guys enjoy that.
All right, our next super chat comes from Colin Davis. Thank you, Colin. He says, I was watching Arizona State games last night. Scat is clearly dangerous, but I didn't know their quarterback was very fast and quick and can throw. I'm a little more nervous now.
Good offensive football club, in my opinion. Right, Jerry? You think they're good offensively?
I don't think they're as good as Clemson. I don't think they have the weapons Clemson does because Jordan Tyson's injured. Offensive line, I don't think is as good as Clemson. I think Levitt's a really good player. I think he's actually an upgrade at quarterback if they had kept Rashada and all that NIL madness and all that crap that was going on. I think Levitt's but Levitt's been a little banged up. He missed the Cincinnati game. He's been healthier. He can move. I like Levitt as a college quarterback quite a bit. Without Jordan Tyson, man, I mean, like Raleek Brown, USC transfer, Malik McClain, Penn State transfer, that way they were redshirting him. They had to play him after the Tyson injury a little bit. But I don't know. I think Clemson's got much better weapons around their quarterback in the passing game. That Jordan Tyson injury is a big one for Arizona State. But if I was an Arizona State fan, my big worry would be my offensive line in this game. That's where I think, and Levitt's been prone to getting beat up a little bit this year because he's still a redshirt freshman. He's got to add some armor, as Rod calls it, to that frame. Kind of like when Cade Klubnik came in. It's taken Cade a couple of years to add those 30 pounds to that frame he needed. Levitt's probably 10, 15 away from where he needs to be. So there's a lot of pressure on this Arizona State offensive line in this game, a lot.
And then our next super chat, fellas, comes from Mike Gosnell. We appreciate you. He says, outside of Scattaboo, what other weapons do the Sun Devils have with their wide receiver Tyson being out?
They used Raleek Brown, the USC transfer. Texas recruited some. He's more of an undersized, in-between running back, slot receiver. They'll use him on some reverse stuff, some jet sweep motion stuff at times. Chamon Matire, their tight end, is from the state of Florida, but they normally line him out, split out wide or in a flex. Look, they don't, and I'm not trying to, I'm just being real in my thoughts. They don't have what Clemson has at wide receivers. And that's part of the reason I'm kind of going big in this game is Clemson had good wideouts, and we talked about it, good tight end headed in. Klubnik had guys that if he had time, he could get the ball to. And I'm not saying Arizona State doesn't have good players. They have good players. It's not Clemson's level players. So that's going to be the issue and they've had a lot of time to prepare for this, but they're going to have to find ways to get their guys the ball in not favorable matchups. Clemson could get in some favorable matchups because of TJ Moore's size on Manny Muhammad, right? They had some matchups there. They had some size at wide out. Antonio Williams, an excellent route runner. I'm not sure Arizona State has those favorable matchups versus Texas. Now, they're going to try to attack the Texas linebackers in coverage because the Texas linebackers have to play run more so this week. And that's going to be the key for me. But I don't think Arizona State has as many favorable matchups, wide receiver on Texas DBs as Clemson had.
Okay, then our next one, we got a load of super chats coming in today. Josh, thank you for your super chat. He says, Merry Christmas, gentlemen. Blessings and cheer to your families. Thanks for all you guys do. Do you guys think that Leavitt is about third or the fourth best quarterback that we've faced?
Second. I don't think who else is better than other than Klubnik, who's better than him? Texas hasn't really faced no offense, but Marcel Reed's not an accomplished quarterback at this point. Taylon Green, maybe, Jerry. I'm not sure he's a pro-style quarterback at this point as good as Levitt. I don't know that Texas has faced good quarterbacks this year. Klubnik was the very first one that I thought was a NFL level, going to play in the NFL at some level guy.
I think he's third. Diego Pavia is better as a college quarterback. But I like Levitt a lot. So probably third.
Okay.
Probably third. Now, it's hard to say because here's the hard thing about that. And I like Levitt a lot. If Levitt played at Arkansas and Taylor Green played at Arizona State, those are the hard conversations. But I like Levitt a lot as a college quarterback.
Yeah, I think he's a top 3 guy for sure. You can debate him or Pavi, I think, depending on what kind of offense you want to run.
Oh, well, I mean, Carson Beck.
Yeah, okay. Top 4 for sure.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
All right, and then we have one from Juan Garza. Juan, we appreciate you as always. He says, Bobby, you should bet Jerry if Notre Dame wins. Jerry has to eat something that is gross that he doesn't like. If Georgia wins, you need to eat a corn dog with mayonnaise.
No, there's only one way that's happening this year, guys. Texas wins the national championship. It's on. I got no problem. No problem if Texas wins the national championship. There's nothing I could bet. Nothing Jerry could bet me would be worth that.
Mm-hmm.
I'll put it that way. Other than a Texas national championship. Then I'm all in. I'll shave my head too. I don't care.
If Texas wins the
if
national
it's once every 20 years, it might grow back in 20 years, by the way.
Hey, if Texas was a national championship, Blake has to keep year-round Christmas for the show.
My wife would love it. She would absolutely love it if that happens. There would be no complaints from her. Brian says to win it all, Texas has to be better in the third. 16 points in the third quarter over the last 7 games. Coming out of the half stronger is going to be a big key in his opinion.
I agree with Brian, but here's the point. I mean, they actually came out of the third quarter strong on Saturday. I mean, they moved the ball. They had 1st and goal at the 3 in the first drive. They came out strong. They had fixed it. And then they flubbed the 1st and goal at the 3. Okay? My thought on it, Brian, and whomever, as we're talking about this, some of it, you just are who you are at some point. And it's not just 16 points over the last 7 games. It's only 6 points over the last 5. They got to start punching it in. 3 points.
That's what I was going to say. Let's say you get to an Oregon game, and because Oregon's going to score in a game like that. Let's say it ends up being a 42-35 game. You're going to have to score a touchdown in the third quarter to get to your 42.
Yes. Yeah, no doubt.
I mean, if you get in one of those games, you're going to have to punch it in the third quarter. If it's a low-scoring game, if the unthinkable to me happened and you ended up getting in a national championship game against Notre Dame, I think you could get by with 3 points in the third quarter against Notre Dame, but I don't think they're going to get there. I was just thinking of a team that would have trouble scoring that was also good on defense. It's a lot of it so much is matchup dependent, but if you get in an Oregon type of game where you're going to have to score 38-42 to win that game, you're not going to win that game with without a touchdown in the third quarter, more than likely, unless you just run it up a big number in another quarter. Because that's going to be a keep pace, who has the ball last type of game, in my opinion.
I agree with that. Jerry's right. And think back to the Washington game last year. That's when Washington put some distance between them and Texas, is in that third quarter. Now, Texas had some fumble issues as part of that. It was more stubbing their own toe, right? It wasn't Washington doing anything to them. But I just, and I said this before, and I'll say it again, I really like the focus that Texas came out with against Clemson. A couple of things there. One, Clemson went down and scored on the first possession. But Clemson finished 3 of 12 on third down conversions. Okay. They were 2 of 2 on the first drive. That means they went 1 of 10 the rest of the game. That's a focused defense. That's one that understands what's going on. They prepared well, etc. Texas on offense, Texas punted once all game. That's a focused offense. Now, I'm not saying it's perfect, but it's focused. So I'm that kind of play from Texas on both sides of the ball is very encouraging, particularly on defense, because I was wondering, hey, what's going to happen with Texas playing a pass-first team with talent. We saw that. Good stuff.
Blake, do you have some holiday cheer for the chat?
I do indeed.
Get it.
Cheers, Jerry.
Bobby stands alone. That's what I'm talking about. Blake just went to the other side.
With mustard, right, Blake?
Oh,
Man, it really ain't bad, Bobby. I
If
can't believe it.
if DJ Campbell can do a Hellman's commercial, everybody ought to eat corn dogs with mayo.
I love the Hellman's commercial for DJ. That's awesome for him. Good for him.
GB in Austin said blindsided. Love it.
Indeed.
How was that, Blake?
That without my knowledge.
How was that, Blake?
On a scale of 1 to 10, Bobby, I'm not BSing you. Probably like 7.5.
It's good. Did Bear sign with the Ducks? Bear Alexander. I believe he did.
Yes. He's
Question
there.
is, will he be there all season?
Yeah. Well, he finishes. He didn't finish at USC this year. Look, there are a lot of guys out there. I think, what are there, 7,000 guys? And the big news yesterday, by the way,
7,000.
we forgot to mention this, the junior college rule. The NCAA rescinded age-old maxim that any kind of years in junior college counted towards your eligibility in college football. That is no longer the case. They are giving you back your years if you played junior college football. So now you have 4 years of eligibility. They're likely going to give you 5, and all 5 will have to be at the major college level or the NCAA level. Not NAIA won't count, and junior college won't count. What does this mean as far as potential guys that could go in the portal? Well, it automatically puts hundreds of players in the portal if they would like to return, or they could actually return to their team. But the NCAA continues to move the goalposts every time they get sued. And why is that? Because their rules for so long were antiquated. And they tried to keep everybody in place for so long, and the floodgates opened, and now everything's going everywhere. This is just another rule that the NCAA is going to have. It is a legacy rule that's getting shot down and going to change the way eligibility happens for players.
I think we're still moving ultimately towards 5 years to play, period. If you get hurt 2 or 3 years, it sucks, but that's life. If you have 2 years at a JUCO, 3 years, I think 3 years at a Division I university, I think that's where this is ultimately moving. It's going to take a winding path. That's what college coaches think, by the way. And so it's not really my opinion. I think listening to those guys, they think it's eventually moving to 5 years, period. That's it. And no red shirt. You can go play 5 years at a college, which I do think is what the rule should be. I think 5 years, period, you're done at that point in time. I think that's what we're moving to eventually. I don't know what year it's going to get there like anything else. I mean, eventually we're going to get this thing to a 16-team playoff. You have 5 years of eligibility and no red shirt. There's no red shirt anymore. You have 5 years to play. Go play them all and be done with this.
Oh, we got a super chat here from Slick Rick. He says y'all missed out on Coy and Ty Detmer from the Rio Grande Valley.
Yeah, Mission as well. Good one. Thank you. Ty won a Heisman at BYU.
That's right. I think of them at Somerset, but they went to Mission because I think that Dad ended up coaching at Somerset. So I always miss that one. Good call.
One of them was in San Antonio too.
Yeah, it's Somerset. That small school outside of San Antonio. And I that's why I always think of them in San Antonio. But it was the dad went from Mission and coached at Somerset. Now I think Ty now coaches at Somerset, if I'm not mistaken. Somebody may know the answer in that chat.
And then we have this super chat here from BevoHolic. Thank you, BevoHolic. Never really watched YouTube or podcasts until my son got me on Texas football. Apparently your son's very intelligent. What a blessing. Merry Christmas, and I look forward to many years of watching you guys covering Texas championship. Hook 'em.
Ooh, I like that last line, the Texas championships. Thank you so much for watching us. To be honest, I'm new to YouTube a little bit myself, so I've never really watched YouTube for news or channels, but some other folks around the country were doing channels. I said, all right, let's start one. And this is what's happened. And I'm so happy that Jerry is alongside Blake, Bob Shipley, Rod Baber, CJ Vogel. One of the things that we tried to do from the very outset, when Jerry and I talked about this, is we wanted to bring more than just our voices in. We wanted to bring voices like Tony Hills or Stevie Lee or former players, guys like yesterday we had the Peach Bowl president. We wanted to bring those kind of guys to y'all as well, and not just be only ourselves talking into the ether, so that you guys got a variety of opinions. But BevoHolic, thanks for watching, and thanks for so many of you that do the same. And yes, cheers. I may even drink some eggnog to more Texas championships and toast that tonight at dinner. So thank you very much.
Maybe a little corn dog with mayo as well, huh? All right, Bobby, tell us about South Point Dodge if you're ready.
Yeah, absolutely. Texas football fans score an easy extra point this season when you get to the point at South Point Dodge. The South Point Dodge has more than 600 vehicles in stock, and their award-winning sales staff doesn't do games or gimmicks. They just get straight to the point by getting you the best deal possible. Go score big today at South Point Dodge, especially those Ram trucks. Come see us off I-35 in South Austin or at southpointdodge.com. Get to the point at South Point Dodge. South Point Dodge is Austin's automotive everything. Looking to sell your car as well? Get South Point's best offer over the phone or online. The Stark family there, big-time believers in South Point Dodge and what they can do for you and your vehicle. Again, check out those Dodge Ram trucks if you get an opportunity at South Point Dodge, southpointdodge.com.
And Jerry, I'm going to give you the opportunity to let everybody know about our newest sponsor, Joy Mode.
Oh my gosh, this is another good read. Guys, I speak for most men when I say we want to have better sex. And for the sake of our partner, we may need to have better sex. The issue is that over-the-counter erection pills, boy, I don't want to read that every day, contain unregulated chemicals, suggested unsafe doses, and include the risk of several other health problems. That's why we partnered with our friends over at Joy Mode. Whether you're looking to spice up your intimate moments or increase your confidence in the bedroom, Joy Mode makes all natural and science-backed supplements dedicated to helping men perform better across their core functions. Their trademark product, the Sexual Performance Booster, is every man's solution for increased blood flow, firmness, stamina, and performance. It's like a pre-workout for sex. Redefine your intimacy and go to joymode.com for 20% off with code ONTEXAS. That's 20% off and free shipping with code ONTEXAS at joymode.com. And my suggestion for the Texas Longhorns in the third quarter, just take all of it, baby. Just take all of it at halftime and see what happens.
That'll cure your third quarter blues, is what you're saying?
Just take it all. Just take it all and see what happens in the third quarter. You're going to score, I guarantee it.
Oh, wow. That's a good line. That's
a good one. I'll give you that. Derek Smith, thank you for your super chat. He says, good morning, OTF. What direction are we going since we missed out on Eric Singleton at wide receiver?
Derek, I mentioned this, and Jerry and I talked about it off air yesterday a little bit. Texas, and I mentioned it on TexasFootball.com this morning. Texas being very particular. They went after one receiver so far in the portal. There is more than one receiver in the portal that can play at Texas. Right, Jerry? Mm-hmm. There's more. That's not the point, though. They want somebody that can elevate them. They're not just going to go take a guy to take someone else's spot. Right? They need someone that can elevate them. And unless they feel a receiver in the portal can really elevate them, they're really happy with who they have right now. They like DeAndre Moore. They like Ryan Wingo. They like Parker Livingstone. So is Matthew Golden potentially coming back? Let's see what happens there. So unless that player can truly elevate them and they believe in that, it's not that the players aren't good, but they're not necessarily better, in their opinion, than DeAndre Moore. So why are you going to not? I mean, that's not what Sark wants to do. He wants to build from recruiting and the portal. He's backfilling major needs. You have to at defensive tackle, for example. Last year, he had to backfill wide receiver because he had so many wide receivers that he lost. This year it's defensive tackle. I don't know what it'll be next year yet. I mean, we'll talk about it. But my point is, you either elevate it with somebody like an Andrew Makuba at safety, right? Or Trey Moore helps your defensive end room. Or, you just don't do it. So it's got to be special. He's not going to go all whole hog in the portal like some of these programs are right now, or forced to do. That's my take on it.
And they look, Texas really likes Zachariah Branch. There's also the Branch with Zion Branch part of the recruitment. So there's a lot of things that they have to just factor in with this. I mean, safety may not be as much of a need. They really like Zachariah Branch, but the Zion Branch, would he have a fit at Texas? I mean, so there's a lot of things that are factoring in here. But I will say this, it's Sark, Texas is aggressive in the portal when Sark wants to be aggressive in the portal. And there's a long way to go in the portal. That's the one thing I'll say. You have through these bowl games, you have through the spring, you have grad transfers. Now you have JUCO guys that have an extra year. So these schools are taking a look at another round of prospects that could potentially have another year right now from the JUCO ranks with this Diego Pavia rule, as we'll call it. At Brandon Simmons, yes, Auburn is definitely going all in. I'll say this. A&M schedule, we mentioned this, but A&M schedule is getting tougher. LSU and Auburn are doing a good job. LSU is addressing needs on defense. Like Texas and Georgia, I think, have lost the least players to the portal in the SEC, 9 each. And I think they haven't taken as many guys from the portal, obviously. But they don't have as many pressing needs as other schools right now. They have needs. Everybody has needs, but they also signed the number 1 and 2 or number 1 and 3 classes as well. LSU has a ton of needs in the portal, and they're doing a pretty good job meeting them. Auburn has needs, a lot of needs in the portal, and they're trying. I don't agree with their quarterback take, but they've addressed a lot of needs. A&M's schedule just got tougher, and Oklahoma's schedule just got tougher. And Brent Venables has to win next year, and his schedule's getting tougher. Watching what LSU and Auburn are doing in the portal.
We have a super chat from Tubin, Texas. Tubin, Texas says, Merry Christmas to Texas teams still playing meaningful football. Hook 'em.
It's only one of those. There's only one of those.
Here's a comment I 100% agree with. Inside scoop, Blues going to have another massive game. Totally agree. The same – look, Blues speed is going to be a real issue, whether that's on the perimeter catching passes, outside zone – is going to be a real issue for Arizona State in this game for the same reasons it was Clemson. Blues should have another big game, and this one's going to be indoors and on turf, and he is going to be a more confident player than ever. I think he's going to have a big game as well. I expect Weiser and Blue to both have big games against Arizona State.
I mean, I'm curious a little bit about something that I've been thinking about it. How much does familiarity with Mercedes-Benz Stadium help Texas? I mean, they just played there 2 weeks ago. How much does that familiarity help you? Any thoughts on that, Jerry? I mean, it's like if I play 2 playoff games in a row at DKR, if I'm a high school team, well, you get used to DKR the next year,
Yeah.
I wonder if
I think the biggest thing for Texas in this game is this is a really, really big environment outside of a national championship game. And you could argue, so obviously semifinal games for a team that's never been there, you're going to feel national championship pressure. Like Arizona State didn't get a warm-up game for this.
Yeah, that's true.
Texas is played in the national semifinal last year, already played a playoff game this year. And you feel nerves. If you don't feel nerves, you don't care, right? So you feel nerves. I think the biggest thing if I'm Kenny Dillingham, the thing I'm worried about is how does my team respond early on? You don't want to get bushwhacked. I mean, that's the problem, is how do you respond early? And I think they're tough. I think Scadaboo's brought real toughness to that program. And I think Levitt, even though his body's not really built for it yet, have brought toughness. But I think there's some advantages to having played in big games for sure. SEC championship was a big game for Texas 3 weeks ago. I think there's an advantage to playing there again. Maybe motivation.
Yeah. I'm just thinking,
what logistics, just all of it.
Yeah. The logistics are a little bit different because it's a championship game versus a bowl game. So there's extra brouhaha over a bowl game. But the stadium itself, I think it matters a little bit. I mean, will it actually impact the outcome of the game? I kind of doubt it, but you get a feel for the field, the way the track, the surface runs, ahead of time, that sort of thing.
Chuck Mason asks, is Scadaboo the best running back we've seen this year? I think he's the best college running back Texas has seen this year by far. Best college. I'm not sitting there saying he's going to be the best pro Texas has played against, because he's going to have to find a role, and it's going to be kind of niche for me and role related. But as far as a college player, he's the best running back Texas has faced because he's so physical.
Splendid.
And he catches really well. So that's 37 catches out of the backfield.
Splendid Daddy, formerly Sugar Daddy, thank you for your super chat. It says, if Texas wins the Natty, Bobby has to manscape. He'll stick with that mayo corn.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about my private parts on this thing. I don't mind the corn dog mayo conversation, but we're leaving my private parts out of this.
There's a line in the sand right there. All right, Jack. Jack says, Blake, my Aunt Fran started a bar in Austin in 1972.
Wow.
Is it Lala or Layla?
Lala.
Yeah. Okay, still there. Christmas tree is up every day for the past 52 years. That's amazing.
That bar was
jealous.
That bar was just, I was just watching a show.
Yes.
And that bar was on it.
Yes. He told me about that when I had lunch with Jack. Me and my wife had lunch with Jack at Dirty Martin's about a month and a half, 2 months ago when he was in town. And good stuff. He told me about that, Jerry, that his aunt had started that bar and they had done that. So yeah, that's awesome.
Blake, you need to take the wife to that bar because it's Christmas year round. She will love it.
it'll be right up her alley for sure.
Yes, Christmas year round. She'll love it.
All right, guys, I think our special guest is here and ready to go. So I'm going to welcome in managing editor for Dave Campbell's Texas Football, Greg Tepper. How are we doing, Greg?
I've just spent 4 days at AT&T Stadium watching 12 Texas high school football state championship games. And I will tell you that event is proof that you can get sick of anywhere. Okay. Because that place is one of the most amazing buildings ever created by humanity. It's a remarkable building. And also by Saturday at about 1 o'clock, I was like, okay, I'd like to go stare at the wall of my bedroom right now.
It is certainly that the deal. I'm just glad you could join us. Last year when you came on, you barely had a voice.
This is going to be the year everybody remembers that I didn't lose my voice. That's the real, I would say the real takeaway from state championships is what a win for me.
Hey, Greg, thank you for joining us. We got a bunch of questions for you. Let's start. Why don't we start at the top with North Crowley versus Austin Westlake. Big game. North Crowley really showed out physically. What did you notice about that game that you wanted to talk about maybe this morning?
So it's really important to remember that Austin Westlake is an elite defense. This is a defense that in the semifinals took Galena Park North Shore, loaded with prospects, loaded with talent, and essentially put them in the sharpshooter in the middle of the ring. And what North Crowley went out there and did from the word go, from the opening play, was dominate this Westlake team, and I think send a statement that they are an offense that we're going to be talking about for a long, long time. I think, I've been doing this for 14 years now. I think that's the fastest offense I've ever seen from a team speed perspective in Texas high school football. Quentin Gibson, the Colorado signee, mercy. He's unbelievable. The offensive MVP, Chris Jimerson, who's going to North Texas, was spectacular. Daniel Bray, Cornelius Warren, they just have speed all over the field, and Westlake just could not handle it. They rolled up 600 plus yards of total offense. They hung a 50 burger on them. I mean, undisputed. And for Ray Gates, the head coach there, who took over this program 3 years ago, and that program was the previous 13 years, they had averaged 3 wins a year. They had been a real like nothing program, and now they're champions at 16-0. It's a remarkable journey for Ray Gates and the Panthers, and established themselves as the clear, in my opinion, the clear best team in Class 6A this year.
Yeah, Greg, we talk on the show all the time from a recruiting perspective. When Ray Gates got there, his biggest chore was keeping the kids from going to Aledo coming out of middle school. Mm-hmm. And if you do that, North Crowley is extremely talented, and he's done a great job at that school. And it'll be interesting to see where they go next year. So many seniors. You mentioned a lot of those guys. Greg, I wanted to ask you this: Scott Surratt, 10th state title, and we talk about records that may never be broken. Winning 10 state titles at one school, and Jets back next year, they're going to be the favorite once again, and KJ Edwards and Beck and all those guys. But talking to him, being around it, kind of your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, like, the GOAT conversation is open now. Like, it's open. He now has more titles than Gordon Wood. Okay, yeah. He has 10 state championships, and furthermore, he's 10-0 in state championship games. Yes. The man is 81-8 in the playoffs. It's absurd, the level of dominance that he's been able to put out there. And every year they come up with something different. Every year the team looks a little bit different, and he is so good at playing the team to its strength. What I love about this team this year was they were, they always want to run the ball, but adding in the passing element with Jet Surratt and Junior Henderson gave them another element. But their real strength was on defense and just in the fronts. They were so good up front and kind of wore down, I think, a very game La Vega team out of the Waco area. And I think that you look at what Scott Surratt has built out there in Panola County, and I mean, you're talking about one of probably the greatest run in Texas high school football history. Yeah. And I mean, we're having real short list conversations. Like that's what it is. You get to 10, you get to 1 for the thumb, and it's serious gravy.
Well,
it's 2 thumbs.
2 thumbs.
Yeah, well, what you said is the key. 10-0 in state title games.
Like, do you know how hard it is to make it to a state championship game? Do you know how hard it is to win a state championship game? I mean, think about some of the teams that had to scratch and claw to win one. He just rolls in there 10 times and comes out with 10 rings. It's crazy. Yes. What he's been able to do.
Greg, I got a couple questions coming in from the chat, and I think this was a good one I want to pick out. It was asking about what your favorite game was of the state championships. Somebody mentioned Shiner versus Munster. What was your favorite game of the series? So
to me, there were 12 games. There were 3 like bangers, 3 absolute like nuclear heaters. One of them was Munster and Shiner, which was the Wednesday night affair, 2A Division II. Munster scores on the final play, or basically 40 seconds left with their coach's kid quarterback, Kason Carney, to put them over the top. Shiner's throwing for the end zone, essentially, but it gets intercepted, and Munster wins the state championship in a just a really, really well-played ball game, just exceptionally well coached. Like, just if you're just a football fan, you like good, hard-hitting football, just a lot of fun to watch. South Oak Cliff and Richmond Randall is in that mix, too. Randall, I would say, kind of upsets South Oak Cliff. I think South Oak Cliff entered this game as a favorite only because this was their 4th straight trip to a title game. The first time South Oak Cliff played in a title game in 2021, Randall didn't exist. It's a 3rd-year varsity program, but and what's so remarkable about that game is South Oak Cliff, I think, was better offensively. That's actually not an opinion. They rang up 250 more offensive yards. I think they were better defensively, but Randall won so dominantly on special teams, and they just won on the margins that they eked out that win in a remarkable victory in a game that at times had real Highland Park Manville vibes. We're just kind of going back and forth, and forth. But my game of the week has to be the longest overtime game in state championship history. Stamford and Ganado in 2A Division I, as it goes to triple overtime, and Ganado wins on the 2-point conversions, basically. And quarterback Bryce Ullman, who what I love about the high school football championship games is that you have like big prospects, right? You get to see Quentin Gibson. You get to see Adam Schobel from Columbus. You get to see like guys who are like 4 or 5-star guys. And then you also get to see guys like Bryce Ullman, who's at Ganado, who's just a ball playing dude and just like a high school football just star, and a star-making performance for him. He comes up with a number of touchdown passes, the game-winning 2-point conversion pass, and the championship-sealing interception for which is very 2A, for Ganado to win their first ever state championship under their head coach Josh Irvin, who's 30 years old, and he leads them to a state championship. That, to me, dripping with intrigue, just a fantastic, another great football game. I was in love with that game. I'm going to watch that game over and over.
Was maybe that guy who looked the best as far as the prospects go that wasn't hyped up was the Salina quarterback, Junior.
Oh, you want to talk about Bo Bentley?
Have you seen him before? And did that kind of shock people a little bit? Because he played above what I thought. He's a really good athlete. He's going to be a good player at next level.
So he was on our radar. We knew Bo Bentley, obviously covering high school football, and Salina's 15-0 and stuff. He was on our radar. And then you see him, and you're like, oh, you're different. And at Salina, it's important to remember they are not a program that tends to have like a true QB1, a true guy who's just like a legit prospect there. But holy cow, this guy is the real deal. And what you saw there was an ability to feel a great feel for the game, an ability to climb the pocket when you need to, ability to take off and run, a real dangerous runner, and a guy who throws that ball with that zip that's just different. Like there's no soap bubbles here. These are all ropes. And the ball comes out of his hand differently. I think if you're talking from a prospect perspective, like a big winner this week was Bo Bentley, who showed out and led Salina to a state championship. He was box office on Friday.
You have a comparison for him?
Yes.
For people that didn't watch it, because I got to be honest, I was so involved in Texas this weekend.
Yeah.
I recorded some of the games and I've watched bits and pieces of North Crowley. But other than that, I mean, you have a comparison for him, Greg?
Yeah, I heard the Longhorns had a small event this weekend too.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know who he reminds me of is Hoss Haney.
Okay.
The guy who went to the Alito quarterback who went to TCU. He's
not
not as fast.
His transfer portal, by the way.
Yeah, he's not as fast. But Hoss Haney's like a true track guy. And I think his mom was like a track star. But he's bigger and he runs and just again the way that he makes throws on the run with that zip. I was like, that's the last time I saw it was Hoss Haney, who obviously went off to TCU and is, is going to be has an opportunity to do big things. I'm very intrigued with what the senior year holds for Hoss Haney, or I'm sorry, for Bo Bentley and his kind of recruitment.
I'll tell you mine for him. And I'm not saying he's going to be that good. It's Cade Klubnik. Similar.
No, I think that's fair.
Athleticism, throw it on the move accurately.
And just like a guy, everything for him looks real smooth. That was the word that all for Klubnik whenever he came out. Like I've got a buddy who's a Clemson guy, and whenever he was cooking in high school, he was like, "Tell me about Klubnik." I'm like, the thing you're going to notice is that everything looks real easy for him. He just looks like he never looks like he's trying real hard. And the same thing kind of goes for Bentley. Like he's obviously giving full effort, but it just all looks real easy for him. Yeah, Bo Bentley is a name to know moving forward.
All right, we're talking to Greg Tepper, managing editor of Dave Campbell's Texas Football. And Greg, we got a viewer question for you from Sarah McCoy. She says, Greg, who was the best player you saw in the state championship games?
Okay. There were a couple. Okay, one. I'll give you three. Quentin Gibson, the wide receiver from North Crowley, just worth the price of admission. A guy who put on a show, an opening. He had the first play touchdown and basically the last play touchdown. And some of the catches he was making were ridiculous. And his ability to get from 0 to 60 is shocking. He didn't have a huge game from a numbers perspective by his standards. But when you take a look at Landon Williams-Callis, the running back at Richmond Randall, the South Oakland bottled him up pretty well. He had about a 70-yard touchdown run that was called back for a hold, and it was a good call. He got a call back. But on that run, he is running away from South Oak Cliff defenders who have an angle. And there was like an audible gasp in the stadium when he's pulling away, like, oh, this doesn't happen to South Oak Cliff defenders. Like, they don't get pulled away from. Really impressive, I thought, was Landon Williams-Callis. And then I'd look at Adam Schobel, the quarterback from Columbus. Again, a guy who looks like he's built in a lab. Some of those throws he made were ridiculous. I mean, and I was on the call with Craig Way. And I had to because your audience is tuning in, and I recognize that this is maybe the only high school football game these people are watching all year. And I have to tell these guys, I'm like, guys, these are not normal throws. What he's doing, he's making just college level, Sunday level throws just with ease. And I'm having to remind the audience, guys, not normal, not normal. There's one other guy, and we kind of name checked him, Queeve Beck, the linebacker from Carthage, an animal out there all over. You want to talk about flying to the football and speed to burn. He was from a defender perspective, I think he might've been the most fun defender that I watched all weekend.
I got one more for you here, Greg, from a viewer. This one from Grady Jenkins. He says, what's your favorite state title game that you've ever done?
Okay. So, I think Stanford Ganado this week, as far as doing color commentary, is going to be on that list. But as far as being on the call, but as far as being there and covering it, I mean, North Shore Duncanville 2018 is the cop-out answer, right? Yeah. It's the Hail Mary. I maintain that if Demetrius Davis's Hail Mary pass to AJ Carter flies out of the back of the end zone, it's incomplete, and Duncanville wins, that's still an all-time great Texas high school football game. Just the physicality and the star power that was on display in that game. I think that even if that falls incomplete, still an elite game. There's two others that I go back to. One that people will probably remember, one that people won't. Highland Park Manville, which was the year before. Ugh. That crazy come from behind win for Highland Park in an absolute just thriller. That game, I think, really kind of you had star-making performances, and just crazy big special teams plays, huge playmakers thrown back and forth. And then one of my games that I think is one of the all-time underrated games. Back in 2013, Argyle played Fairfield in a state championship game, and it was about 22,000. And it was back and forth between two guys. Argyle had a guy named Ian Sadler who went off to play, I think, Arizona State. Yeah. And had a nice career there. And he was awesome. And Fairfield, in a losing effort, had a player named Larry Rose III. Okay. And they had built the whole team out of Larry Rose III, their running back. And I think one of the most electrifying performances I've ever seen from him. And he said he literally, on his 40th carry of the game, he's running for a game-winning touchdown. And you could see him literally run out. It's like a battery running out of a kid's toy. He's gets caught from behind for the only time all game, and that ends up being the difference of the ball game. That's a game that I remember as far as a deep cut is concerned from a state championship that I really, really enjoy.
Bobby, Jerry, anything else?
I think that's it, Greg. Appreciate you joining us, man. I speak for a lot of people. Thank you for what you do for high school football. Craig Way is a longtime friend of mine. I've known Craig for, literally since I was 22, 23. That's how, and I'm 55 now, Greg. You've kind of taken that torch for high school football from Craig, and knowingly Craig's now the voice of Longhorns, has been for a long time. Craig's still intimately involved in high school sports with you guys. But I just want to say thank you for doing the sport justice at the high school level.
Well,
appreciate it very much, because I'm someone that grew up on it, just like you did, just like Blake did, just like Jerry. It's good to see somebody that really gets it and loves it, and your passion for it is evident, and that's That's the best thing I can say for you, man.
Well, Bobby, I appreciate that. I really do. And look, I came into this gig trying to do right by Dave Campbell. And it just make sure do him proud. By the way, a La Vega alum, so he's not having a great week. They lose. But do right by him, and then to work with Craig. Like, here's the thing. I'll tell you guys this. They say, like, don't meet your heroes. I will just tell you this. If you ever have the idea, like the chance to be like friends with your hero, like, it rocks. I'm just telling you, it's really cool. Like, to just text Craig Way. It's just like still like pinch me situation. But I appreciate that. And it's a fun gig. I'm ready to sleep a little bit, but like it was a great season.
All right.
You guys, by the way, to echo Bobby, you guys do a great job, and Texas high school football can't continue to be what it is without the great coverage you guys provide and the knowledge and the insight. Matt Stepp, all the guys, the entire team. You guys have a great team, so congrats on that. And because you guys are a huge part of Texas, whether y'all want to admit it or not, you're a huge part of Texas high school football continuing to be what it is because of the coverage y'all give it.
I appreciate that. And if we are a way for people to get into to understand how great this stuff is, then that is a torch we're happy to bear.
Keep after, Greg. We appreciate you, buddy. Thanks for stopping by. All right, have a good one. Good morning. Merry Christmas too, man. All right, Greg Tepper, managing editor, Dave Campbell's Texas Football. Good guy, does a great job for the sport, as we mentioned as well. Hey, Jerry, a couple of other things we wanted to get to this morning. Just to recap, though, before we do that, we wanted to mention the injury update. If you're just now joining us from earlier, Cam Williams, Steve Sarkisian saying the injury not as bad as feared. We have heard he's back on the practice field yesterday. Jake Majors, Trey Weiser also fine. Kelvin Banks, no lingering effects from the ankle, we were told. The one that we are still keeping monitoring is Isaiah Bond at this point, the young man that missed the Clemson game with an ankle injury. We'll see if he's ready to go and gets healed up here over the Christmas holidays. Longhorns not having practice today. Steve Sarkisian giving them off until Thursday, the day after Christmas. We'll see what all that means and follow them through this. But all in all, I thought it was a positive update from Steve Sarkisian's press conference yesterday.
And I want to add this, Sarah McCoy. Yes. Hold on. Sorry, we're moving fast here. I mentioned this last night, but when Jake Majors starts against Arizona State, he will have the most starts ever for a University of Texas player. And that's saying congrats to Jake Majors, because that'll be 55 or 56 games he started. I can't remember which one is the record, but that's a pretty cool record for Jake Majors, because that means you've been healthy and doing it as the center position. You've never been beat out. And at the center position, I mean, you're a integral part of this Texas program and the turn of this program. Maybe a guy that doesn't get enough credit, V56. Maybe somebody that we don't give enough credit when we talk about all the guys that have been part of this turnaround of the Texas program. He came out of Prosper. I was ESPN at the time. We had him at ESPN Under Armour game. He had never played center, really. He was more of a guard tackle to go into college and play center and take the reins like he has and be part of this. Tip of the cap, Jake Majors. That's a hell of a career at Texas.
It is, and it's really hard to do when you start your career off in your first season as a true starter. You're 5-7.
Yep.
So you don't get a lot of extra games when you're 5-7. He's had to add on the games here late. He's played 14 games last year. He'll play at least 15 this year. One more thing to add into the Jake Majors conversation. I posted a question to the YouTube chat on our YouTube channel, actually asking who the player of the game was on Saturday. And I put the normal suspects. I mean, Jaden Blue, obviously in there, Quinn Ewers, etc. You know who I should have mentioned is Hayden Connor. And I because he filled in at that integral position and did it pretty seamlessly until that fumbled snap with Arch Manning, Jerry. I should have put, in retrospect, I should have put maybe Hayden Connor in there. in my opinion. But obviously, Jaden Blue wins it. 3,000 plus votes, no doubt about it. But maybe Hayden Connor over, I don't know, Gunnar Helm or Baron Sorrell. But good stuff. Good stuff overall. Jake, congrats to Jake Majors. You're right, Jerry.
There's a chat has got some great combo. Who went to Carter back in the day? I think you're talking about that 80s team early and the 90s teams. Jerry Ball was Beaumont Westbrook. Jesse Armstead was Dallas Carter. Bobby, Jonathan Scott was Dallas Carter, but not the teams y'all are talking about. Some of the other Dallas Carter guys back in the day. I know the chat.
Eric Evans was a big one. Shy Maston,
yeah,
was a linebacker. You mentioned Armstead. Greg Hill, the running back at A&M that went on to the NFL, big time running back. The quarterback, Robert Hall, was the quarterback on that team. He played at Texas Tech for Spike Dykes. There were, dozens literally went on to play in college football from that team.
This guy always makes me jealous. Laguna Beach Longhorn. Should do a live show there. Let me know, Laguna Beach Longhorn. Best thing that happened 2024 is discovering OTF. Thank you very much for that. How do you handicap the likelihood of Taft, Moore, Blue, and Golden returning, Bobby?
All questions. How do you handicap them? I'm going to say this. I don't know yet.
I don't either.
I don't know that the story is written.
Yeah.
And the reason why, what if Matthew Golden keeps going off like he is? And suddenly, instead of a 4th or 5th round pick, like some are projecting him right now, he rises to a 2nd or 3rd because of the production increase over the last half of the season. He really has tremendous production over the last half of the season. What happens if Trey Moore starts doing a little bit more there? What if Michael Taft gets his grade back in its 2nd or 3rd day as opposed to or 3rd day as opposed to 2nd day or free agent maybe? I don't think it's written yet. It's a good, fair questions on all 4 of them, by the way. But sure would be nice to have all 4 of those guys back for sure.
Well, we got more super chats to get to this morning. A handful more here. And let's start with this one from Dax Kelm. Dax, thank you for your super chat. Says, Merry Christmas. Set Baby Rhino free versus Arizona State. Hook 'em.
Yeah.
That's Jarrett Gibson, young man out of Florida. He had 9 carries for 35 on Saturday. That was his most since what game was he used? Fairly liberally. It's been a while, Jerry.
Yeah.
He had the fumbles and Sark put him on the shelf for a little bit. He didn't come close to fumbling anything on Saturday, I didn't see.
Yeah.
Maybe he can, Dax, to your point, maybe he's back in the rotation a little bit. Obviously, he's forced into it somewhat given Jaden Blue or given Trey Wisner's injury during that game. But perhaps that's a time for a young freshman to shine.
By the way, I want to bring this one up because this guy's spot on. The best small school defense in the history of Texas was Dangerfield 83. The best small school, David Whitmore, Coach Graham. I call it Damon Graham. Former Coach Graham. That defense, if you ever look up, they're a small school football best defense in the history of the state of Texas. Unbelievable.
They scored.
I think they had 11 shutouts.
They outscored opponents that season. I think it was like 631-8.
Yeah.
That's unreal.
People couldn't get across the 50 on that team from the stories I heard from people that would know back then that played against it or were coaching in the area. It was small school defense.
So I just Googled it. 14 shutouts, including 13 straight. Kilgore apparently was the only one. And even in the state championship game, 42-0 as well. So that's just phenomenal.
That's the best small school team ever. If you can't score, you can't win.
I don't remember all the players on that team. Obviously, there may have been another, but I think Thomas Everett,
he was on that.
Was a safety on that team. He ended up playing at Baylor and went into the NFL. I think he was their best defensive back, at least. They may have had somebody on the defensive line that ended up playing in the NFL too.
Yeah, they were unbelievable. Their secondary was off the charts for small school.
Hey, by the way, we were talking earlier. Blake got texted while we're in the middle of it from Carl Padilla. For those unfamiliar, the Padilla poll, he watches on Texas football a little bit. He said and reminded us, Jerry, that Ty Detmer played at San Antonio Southwest, not Somerset. He's the HC at Somerset now.
Yep, good correction there. Thank you, Carl, for that. We got a few more super chats, guys. This one from Juan. We appreciate you as always. What do you all think of the A&M portal? It seems like they are getting anybody that's highly touted, and along with Tech going crazy there as well. Y'all's thought?
Well, I'll start off this comment by the portal prospect rankings are the worst thing going in our industry by far. And I don't care if I'm taking a shot or not. All you guys have it wrong. It's bad. It's a bad look. It's a bad ranking system. It makes no sense. I like TJ Searcy, the guy A&M got from Florida. I think he's a good player. I really like the receiver they got, Mario Craver from A&M. I think they're getting he adds speed, an element of speed that their offense didn't have this year. I think they're getting better in some spots. I don't think they're doing at this point nearly as well as like LSU or Auburn is for my. Yeah, I think LSU is filling more major needs in the portal than anybody else right now that I've seen.
The thing I don't like about A&M is I don't think they got a quarterback. I think OU got a quarterback. You know, LSU got their best recruit getting Nussmeier back, frankly. Right?
LSU is doing some damage though. I want to give them credit. I mean, they're doing some damage in the portal. I really do think that. I know some people I don't care about portal rankings, like team rankings, what people have them. But portal LSU, what they're doing is in the portal to me is, and I'm trying to find where this is. I'm going to get to it in a second. But Mansour Delane, the DB out of Virginia Tech, I mean, really good player. They also got Michael Van Buren. They're too deep at quarterback. Barrion Brown, whether he catches the ball effectively or not, he brings an element of speed to the return game and deep threat to LSU with Nussmeier next year. Nick Anderson, if he's healthy, he was a first or second round grade going into the season. They're getting some guys that are going to be big helps for them. Patrick Payton off the edge, the kid from Jack Pyburn from Florida, Jamari Butler from Nebraska, the tight end from OU. I think they're maybe filling needs of a team better than anybody else in the portal right now, which again, that's bad news for A&M and Oklahoma next year because LSU's getting better, I think.
All right, guys, we got a few more super chats before we get out of here, so we're going to try to run through these real quick. Blake, thank you for the super chat. It says, biggest misconception about working in the recruiting business.
This one could get me in trouble.
I actually think it's always fun and not work. I mean, sometimes it's just work.
Yeah.
You know, I remember, like, I'll explain what I mean by that. Typing names into a database is not fun.
No.
Learning about those players is fun. You know, talking to those players is fun. But sitting down there and just sitting there typing in name after name and height and weight and that sort of stuff, that's not fun. So that's probably the biggest misconception. It's not all fun. Mostly is, though.
I'm gonna get in trouble for saying this, but I mean, I like to be.
How are you gonna get in trouble, dude?
Well,
you're acting like you're gonna get spanked by the teacher or something.
Well, maybe.
Okay.
The misconception is that these college coaches watch full huddle games and game tapes of all these players.
Oh, yeah.
Doesn't happen. I think I think fans sit there and think that these guys are sitting there breaking down full games of all these players before they make decisions. And sometimes, yes, but most of the times, nope. And
sometimes it's not the coaches that are watching, though. It's the analysts now that are telling the coaches these are the ones you want.
Sometimes they're doing it just like you guys do. They just turn on the huddle tape and watch the highlights and form an opinion. Then they go watch the kid in person and form a final opinion. It's not always. I mean, if you think about time in a day and you think about how many prospects there are out there that a school offers and recruits and evaluates, there's not enough time for them to watch 4 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 full games of these kids. There's just not. Now, what's happened in the recruiting world that's helped the college coaches because of these staffs is they can get good and bad cut-ups. So they don't have time to go through and watch full games of all these guys. There's too many kids. So they'll watch the good and bad cuts. They'll have somebody make cut-ups for them. But that I'm sorry if any college coaching buddies text me in the next couple hours. I'm sure they got better things to do than watch this. But I think that's one of the misconceptions. These guys are just grinding on these game tapes of all these kids all the time. It's just not happening. They don't have enough time.
And we have another one from Blake here. Thank you again, Blake. Huge Quinn fan, but can someone explain his unanimous #1 high school ranking? I see the 5-star talent, but not sure I ever saw #1 overall.
He never played his senior year of high school.
That's
huge.
So you don't know if he would have ended up being #1 after a senior year. That's how I explain it. I think that coming off his junior year, he made a couple of throws in the playoffs that looked otherworldly that year. The hit coming off his sophomore year, going into his junior year. And then he didn't play his senior year. And so you didn't actually get to see him be that ranking as a senior. And his ranking could have gone up or down from there. It's like you only got a taste of him as a junior. And that's why I think his ranking was that high and never moved because they didn't see him again. Play high school ball.
One of the things I always say is I think people fall into the recruiting rankings had it wrong on the kid. Every college in America wanted him. Every single one. So they had him ranked there too. By the way.
Fred 90s Caddy Johnson. Thank you for the super chat. I watch OTF like my grandma watched her stories. Hook 'em. Gibson will be big down the stretch.
Hope so. He could be the big back. He did some good work on Saturday. I thought one time near the goal line, he had that cutback, Jerry, that went for a long run. As long as he keeps protecting the ball, he's useful. That is the absolute thing that he has to do, protect the ball.
Yeah. All right. Before we get to this last one, Bobby, one more time, will you let everyone know about Duck Camp?
I will, Blake. Duck Camp has been the sponsor of the last 2 weeks now of college football playoff week. Duck Camp gear is made for the people that live for the moments out there where there are fish to catch, birds to hunt, time to kill, football to watch. They like doing all that stuff, so they built a company centered on it, based in Austin and dedicated to giving people best-in-class hunting and fishing apparel like the vest I'm wearing right now. There are those of you out there that look forward to the opening day of hunting season and the kickoff of Longhorn football and the college football playoffs with the fervor and excitement of a 5-year-old on Christmas morning. That'll be tomorrow. Duck Camp is here to let you know that from opening day to game day, they've got you covered at Duck Camp. They believe you can't just sit around and wait for adventure to come to you. You have to get out there, stay out there, and make the most of each and every second. Here's the great seasons, y'all. Yes, hunting and football. Shop hunting and fishing gear at duckcamp.com. Thank y'all for sponsoring college football playoff week here at On Texas Football. Hook 'em.
Hey, Blake, I'm going to run this down this real quick. It'll take me 2 minutes. Greg Powell asked us, people come in different times, who are the players and coaches at ASU now? The players that were signed with Texas that are at Arizona State, Xavier Alford, the safety, really, really good player. Signed with Texas, transferred to USC, then to Arizona State. Zach Swanson, defensive lineman in their rotation, not a starter. Prince Dorbaugh from Highland Park, starting edge rusher part-time for them over the last couple of years, transferred from Texas. Troy O'Meara, Jake Smith at wide receiver, both rotational players. Troy O'Meara started the Big 12 championship game. They're both rotational players, both transferred from Texas. Brian Carrington is the corners coach, one of the up-and-coming coaches in college football at that position, was obviously the head of the recruiting department at Texas under Tom Herman.
Thank you for the rundown. And I want to read this before we get to the last super chat. Jedi Master Bevo said, I had a heart procedure yesterday morning. When I got out, my wonderful wife had yesterday's coffee and football up and ready for me to watch. She sounds like a keeper, Jedi, and we hope that your recovery is going very well. So
absolutely. I hope it is going well, Jedi Master.
Yeah, definitely. And then this will be the final one for today from Slick Rick. He says, Jerry, get DJ on OTF and have him and Bobby eat the corn dog with mayo after we win the Natty, followed by Bobby shaving his head. Merry Christmas, OTF family. It's a great time to be a Longhorn. Hook 'em.
Are we talking Derek Johnson, Dustin Johnson, the golfer?
Or maybe CJ too. CJ Vogel with a mistype there.
B&D close on the keyboard.
Yeah. Look, I've said my piece. That's the only way you're getting me to eat a, even though my wife brought this in, by the way.
Cheers, Bobby.
No, not happening.
Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good day. Oh, DJ Campbell. Campbell. Yeah.
DJ Campbell, the Mayo NIL. That makes sense. There you go.
Yeah.
Sometimes we're a little slow. All right, guys. Well, that's going to do it for today's episode of Coffee and Football. I want to thank Duck Camp, South Point Dodge, and Joy Mode all for sponsoring today's show. Bobby, we're not going to be here tomorrow, but let everybody know what they can expect until we come back on Thursday.
Yeah, absolutely. Lunch with the coach later today, Bob Shipley and Brian Irwin. I can tell you from the texts I've shared with them, they're smarting a little bit because remember last week what they said on Lunch with the Coach? Run the ball was their maxim for the game against Clemson, and they're feeling pretty sharp that they got that one right for Texas's win. They also want to talk a little bit about Arizona State. Later today, we also have recruiting breakdown. Jerry and CJ get after it. We do not have a live stream tonight, but because it's Christmas Eve. Tomorrow, we're going to have a couple different shows that will be pre-recorded. I will say that, at least in the morning, unless there's news that breaks. Jerry and I are going to sit down and we're going to have Hump Day with Hills. We're going to let the preacher bring the sermon to you on Wednesday morning, and then we'll go from there with some other news and notes as well. Jerry looking at the 2025 recruiting class a little bit, some things he wants to discuss there. If you also want to join the discussion each and every day, the community is growing each and every day, and I appreciate you guys, the way y'all keep it to football and or lighthearted stuff. There's not a bunch of rigmarole in there. Y'all have done a tremendous job building that community. Thank you for that. Also, we have news and notes every single day about the team and recruiting. Visit ontexasfootball.com so you can get access every day of the year, $39.95 for a whole year. If you use the promo code OTFOG, be an OG with us. That's OTFOG, $39.95 for 1 year.
And don't forget that the On Texas Football store is open. A little late for Christmas gifts. If you're Jerry Hamilton, wait until the last minute. You're going to be disappointed. But you can get it a little late, and that'll be all right. Head to shop.ontexasfootball.com. Get your hats, get your mugs, and get geared up for this playoff run. And we would also appreciate if you'd hit that like and subscribe button, ring the bell so you're notified anytime we go live, post content, whatever it may be. You won't miss a beat between that and ontexasfootball.com. Well, we hope you all have a Merry Christmas. We'll be back on Thursday. Be sure to tune in tomorrow morning for Hump Day with Hills after you unwrap those presents. What you got, Bobby?
I want to say Merry Christmas to everyone, and I have a little bit of a Christmas gift for our Saturday conversation coming for everyone.
Boy,
so,
and I want to say to Blake's wife, you're the best Christmaser ever. So just you get the award.
She just
never seen anything like it. Discussion Saturday before the Texas game about her classroom. She's the best Christmaser, if I can start a new word ever.
I wish she literally just stepped outside, or she would have loved to hear that. I have to play it back. All right, guys. Well, we will be back on Thursday. Have a Merry Christmas, and we will see you then.
Hook 'em.